Now to a major ruling involving the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court struck down a New York law.
Number two, the pricing structure for what is available is off the wall. The prices are phenomenal.
I think that someone who is not otherwise prohibited should be issued a concealed carry permit without any problems at all.
It's going to be a long time until this thing normalizes, and you're going to have the stock that people are used to seeing from several years ago.
Today's Supreme Court ruling on guns could have far-reaching implications for the right to carry in states across this country. Gun rights and the Second Amendment were front and center at the Supreme Court today.
The Ninth Circuit has reinstated the background checks and ammunition limitations in California that Judge Benitez previously overturned. Ninth Circuit reinstates restrictions. The ammunition limits in California, which were recently overturned by Judge Benitez in the ROI versus Bonta litigation, have now been reinstated by the Ninth Circuit. Last night, the panel of the Ninth Circuit finally took action on this issue, and the outcome wasn't favorable for gun owners in California. The decision by the Ninth Circuit motions panel to grant California's request for a stay pending their appeal in the Ninth Circuit wasn't in our favor. In other words, this emergency motions panel sided with the state of California and reinstated the importation restrictions and background check system. Now, if you're not aware, ROI versus Bonta deals with the state of California's restrictions on the purchase of ammunition and also the background check system that you must go through to be able to purchase ammunition.
Now to a major ruling involving the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court struck down a New York law.
Major test of gun regulations since the court said that gun ownership was a right protected by the Constitution. Kids who brought the case and are cheering today's ruling, as well as those concerned about the potential fallout.
No reason given other than I don't think that you need it.
Every single one of us less safe from gun violence.
ROI also deals with the importation restrictions that California put in place on ammunition. This provision was passed through Proposition 63, which requires purchasers of ammunition to undergo one of two background checks to confirm that you can legally purchase ammunition, essentially to prove that you're not a prohibited person. So that's essentially the law in question in California, and that was what was challenged in ROI versus Bonta. Originally, Judge Roger T. Benitez, or Saint Benitez as he's known in California, is the district court judge who originally reviewed this case a few years back. Now, after his original ruling, of course, the state of California appealed his decision up to the Ninth Circuit. Oral arguments were held in November of 2020 in front of a three-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit, but the ruling of the panel was then put on hold because the Supreme Court was going to issue a decision, and ultimately, they did issue a 6-3 decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin.
Gun rights and the Second Amendment were front and center at the Supreme Court today.
My response to that is that's the same claptrap.
Uptick in violence has just been astronomical. The gun violence.
The appeals court that was asked to step in and allow the regulations to continue agreed with the district court judge.
It's not the gun owner, it's not the carry pistol permit holders, it's the criminals that are causing it.
What ended up happening is a lot of cases, including a bunch of California cases, were then remanded back down to the lower courts. This one, ROI, was remanded back down to Judge Benitez for him to reconsider the case in light of Bruin. And then last week, we got an awesome decision from Judge Benitez. The short and tweet of that decision was that Judge Benitez enjoined the enforcement of various sections of California's penal code which apply to ammunition. The decision by Judge Benitez lifted the background check requirement in California and then also the importation restrictions, which allowed people to go online, purchase ammunition, and then have it sent to them directly, which a lot of people did.
Today's Supreme Court ruling on guns could have far-reaching implications for the right to carry in states across this country.
Kelly, we know Americans are buying a lot of guns, but finding ammunition for those guns can be tough.
On average, between 2 and 4 years to set up a new production line.
Retailers tell us the ammunition to use them has become near impossible to find or too expensive to buy, that the government is buying and hoarding ammunition to keep it out of the hands of law-abiding citizens.
Now, in response, California and Gavin Newsom and the Attorney General were very upset. They went online, were bashing Judge Benitez, and then also they went back to him and asked for Judge Benitez to issue a stay on his own decision, and in the alternative, to issue a 10-day administrative stay so that they could appeal up to the Ninth Circuit. Now, in that motion, California also demanded that Judge Benitez respond by 2 p.m. that day. Well, we don't think Judge Benitez liked that at all, and he responded to that request, to that motion, denying both requests for stays. He rejected the stay of that decision, as well as the request for a 10-day administrative stay, allowing ammunition freedom to continue for a few days. We were unaware that this would be the case because California immediately filed an emergency request for a stay pending appeal to the Ninth Circuit Motions Panel, which is composed of 3 judges chosen at random each month to review emergency motions. Many of us had been expecting that day, January 31, to hear something from the Ninth Circuit Motions Panel. However, nothing came of it, and we spent the entire weekend wondering, what is happening? This is a little bit unusual.
It is not unusual for a gun owner to have many firearms because they serve different purposes.
Which raised some questions about the future of ammunition sales in the state now that the new legislation is in effect.
That required people to show a special need to carry a concealed gun in public.
This is a violation of that federal law. The federal judge that initially ruled in this agreed, saying it's up to Congress.
I think that someone who is not otherwise prohibited should be issued a concealed carry permit without any problems at all.
In addition, we received notice from the California Department of Justice informing FFLs that they were no longer required to conduct background checks due to the decision made by Judge Benitez and the denial of the stay, and that people could also purchase ammunition online. The DOJ acknowledged the decision. Finally, last night, an order was received from the Ninth Circuit, which stated that it was ordered by Judge Clifton. The current briefing schedule is in place while the District Court's January 30, 2024 permanent injunction and judgment are granted on the application to stay them. As the lone judge to dissent, Callahan Circuit Judge said that she would refuse the petition for a stay pending appeal because she didn't think the appellant had fulfilled his burden of proving that there was a chance of success on the merits or that irreparable harm would result in the absence of a stay pending appeal.
The court had previously said that under this New York rule, you couldn't get a firearm and carry it.
It's something that the anti-gunners put in there to keep the guns out of the hands.
The administration issuing those regulations last year saying the guns are a major threat to public safety.
And the White House later clarified the president's statement to News Nation, saying that the country's leftover ammo is...
Number 2, the pricing structure for what is available is off the wall. The prices are phenomenal.
Navigating uncertainty. So, despite the dissent and despite this order, there's no real clarity or rationale about why the state was granted, and no clarity about what happens now, maybe with orders that happened before this day. Maybe those that haven't shipped, or maybe even those that are currently in transit. That has a lot of people asking what happens now with all these orders, and really, at this point, we have no real guidance and no clear answer on what happens because the Ninth Circuit has kind of left us in limbo on that very issue.
The Second Amendment doesn't end at your doorstep.
Can you take us through and explain how that decision factored into this ruling today?
And they're saying, they have the authority to do that. The gun rights groups that are suing
for firearms and now ammunition. It's part of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act.
It's going to be a long time until this thing normalizes, and you're going to have the stock that people are used to seeing from several years ago.
Some companies have notified purchasers that if they bought before this day granted by the Ninth Circuit, those companies will finish processing the orders and finish shipping those orders. So, some companies are taking that position, and some companies are probably going to take the opposite position. We need answers on that very specific question, because it's leaving a lot of people potentially exposed due to the lack of clarity by the Ninth Circuit. We have seen other organizations file similar motions for clarification in the Fifth Circuit when the whole pistol brace ruling happened in the Mock case. We think we need to see something like that also happen in this case. Also, we think there could be, or maybe even should be, additional motions to Judge Benitez and then also to the Ninth Circuit Merits Panel to reconsider these stays. We believe there should be a push for the Ninth Circuit Merits Panel to overrule the Motions Panel's decision on Thursday. Alternatively, we could even go back to Judge Benitez and ask him to issue a more limited injunction, perhaps just protecting members of the CRPA, Gun Association of California, or these other organizations, as we saw in the Mock versus Garland brace case and some of the other cases that were pulled out of the Fifth Circuit.
Comes as the White House is walking back President Biden's claim that the U.S. is running low on ammunition.
Well, you had to prove that you had some individualized need for a firearm.
The ammunition market is dried up. There's virtually no ammunition available.
And gun policy, so it sounds like you are the perfect person to talk to.
I just felt that I needed to be able to protect myself.
One of my distributors just ran out of everything.
We believe that moving to a more narrowly defined scope of protection might make it more difficult for the Ninth Circuit to reject, but once again, the Ninth Circuit sort of goes along with what it does. The Ninth Circuit will continue to try to violate the Supreme Court's rulings in an effort to violate the Second Amendment, but we need to be a little more assertive in the courts and exercise a little more gunship of our own. We might even go back to Judge Benitez and say, okay, they override this broad sweeping injunction, but maybe we go back and try to get a little more limited in scope injunction, while this appeal is the entire justification that California offered to support this stay in the United Circuit that was criminals would purchase ammunition without having their backgrounds checked. However, we believe that applying for a limited injunction for only these organizations, CRP, etc., could sidestep that entire argument because many CRP members are not criminals, and we are well aware that no criminals are joining CRP or any other 2A organizations. This effectively just avoids the Ninth Circuit from latching onto that one argument. Moving forward, this case will move forward to the Ninth Circuit Merits Panel, which consists of 3 judges. My question moving forward is whether the 3-judge panel that previously reviewed ROI. That will be something to watch out for as well. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.